Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Ray Kelly, and this is part two of the Ontario and Western. From we're going to go from Rock Tavern to Middletown today, and just as a quick recap. So this is what Beatty Road looks like. It still does well, not now because there's no snow, but as this was all farmland back here, and this dam has broken, and since they filled the bridge and there's nowhere for the water to go. So it's just constantly filling up these embankments. And this is bridge number 33, Slovak Lane. This is a private road. This is quite a steep grade here. It doesn't look it, but sometimes when the trains were coming, they needed 2 or 3 to push them. And here we are approaching Rock Tavern, right here. This house still stands, and the new post office would be over here. This is what Rock Tavern looked like in 1916. Now, Rock Tavern's my favorite part of the railroad. When I was a kid, I went to school in Goshen, and even then, I could tell something was going on, just the way that, because the road was still concrete back then, what we call Twin Arch Road. And this is a stubbing post. This is near the right-of-way. The train was over here, the tracks. So these are from the D&H Canal up in Ulster and Sullivan counties. And what they did was they used them for mileposts. And when the railroad went out of business, people would take them and use them as souvenirs. They were all over the place. And some sad news in Rock Tavern. A couple men got killed. One almost got killed. So you can see here it says Rocklet Post Office and Rock Tavern. And the reason for this is, in the late 1890s and the early 1900s, there was a prominent family called the Beattys, which the road is named after. And 2 of their daughters, or 2 of their sisters, I'm not positive, they were leading members of the Women's Christian Temperance Union. And they were fond of having their mail sent to Rock Tavern. So, using their pull, they had the name changed to Rocklet for just a short while. So in 1904, if you're familiar with where Rock Tavern is, 207 did not connect at Rock Tavern until 1905. If you're familiar with Forester Road, it went across what we would think of as 207, and then it connected with Lincolndale Road, which is now Twin Arch Road, which is here. So this way, this is the proposed highway that they're going to build. So this is what we know as Twin Arch Road now. So you come in off of 207, and then you go that way towards 208 in Washingtonville, and this way you go out 208 towards Burnside and Maybrook. So in 1904, this is what it looked like. So you can see how the road used to go like this, and this was all concrete at one time. And even when I was like 11, 12 years old, so something's going on here. But I had no idea until I got hired by the DOT, and they were removing this bridge that they put in 1937. They were removing that. So this is what the roads looked like in 1904. So this is the 207 in Newburgh. This is the O&W back to Cornwall, out to Middletown. This is Forester Road, out to 208. And this is what back then was called Lincolndale Road, which is now Twin Arch Road. And you see how you had to cross at grade. And there was a Rock Tavern. It was over in here. And it was before there was a United States of America. George Washington stopped here on his way to Goshen from Newburgh in New Jersey. And then it just burned down in 1902. So in 1905 they built a bridge and they completely wiped out Rock Tavern as we know. The grade crossing was eliminated. They put in this bridge, which we'll take a look at in a second. And that's the bridge that they put in. So in a few short years, now these bridges were built when there were very few automobiles. There were still horse and wagons. So So in a few short years, this thing was obsolete, as were most of them.
Yeah, they don't look like they're that strong, right?
No. They were strong enough, but they weren't strong enough to hold trucks and stuff like that. You know, cars going 40, 50 miles an hour. So that's what they did in 1904. So from 1904 to around 1937, this is how the road went. And then finally, during the Depression, the end of the Depression, the road is the way we know now, except for where it crossed. They took the bridge out in 1977, 78. So this is where I first really, one of the first things I really found out about the O&W when my father and I drove down here. This guy told us to drive down the railroad tracks to get to his house to buy a car. And he was like, ugh. But there was no tracks that were torn up. I never forgot that. And this is the Creamery, what's left of it here. It can easily be seen in the winter. Like now it's hard. In the spring I wouldn't go either because there's a lot of snakes in the area. This house, this was a feed mill. And over the years, they just kept adding on to it. And now it's an abandoned house, but take a look. It's gotten quite big over the years. The late, great Ed Christ, he was a railroad author. He forgot more about railroads than I'll ever know. He suspects that these were work cars and that Italian laborers would live in them while they were double tracking the railroad at this time. So here's that feed mill in the back I was mentioning. Now it's even bigger. And the Creamery burned down in 1924. When they built the bridge, they moved the station from over here on this side to this side over here. Here they are building it in 1909, and there's the feed house again. So they would have crossed, the grade would have went over here, and it would have went there. And this is taken from the last passenger train, September 10th, 1953. And you can see how the road was. So this, where I'm standing, was where the photographer was. So you can see how crazy this turn was here. Building the bridge. This is the way to Burnside. Burnside will be back here.
Good date.
Yeah, I know somebody that they do. And here's the old bridge. This is called Lincolndale Road back then. Now it's Twin Arch. So here they are building the bridge in 1936, 37. People ask me what this is. I have no idea. And a lot of the guys in the Historical Society don't either. So when they built this bridge, this abutment was left in, one of the old ones, and then it was finally taken down in 77, 78, the one that was over here. Right here, just stayed till like 1977, 78. So this is, needed a drone really from 1904 so we could see how crazy this road was. So I'm standing here, looking this way. That's the way the road used to go. So you could see how it went, and then you have to make a hard right and then come back around. So I suspect from my trolley program that this might have been built so they could prevent the trolley from connecting Newburgh and Middletown, possibly. So here's a nice new bridge they built in 1937, 38. It was just like the one that was in Meadowbrook on 94. And here's the old bridge. You can see it was cement. And there's the crack for the cement right there. So this is how the road used to go. Again, you could see the old posts for the guide cable. So it used to go like this through the woods here. And you'd go like that and then come back around. It was really a hairy intersection, or bridge approach. So this is the one I was mentioning. This was stayed until 1977. And this was over in here. This is the other abutment. They never cleaned everything up. We'll keep an eye on this bridge back here. Can't even see it. There's an old farmer's bridge back there. So again, this is now we're looking towards Burnside. So the road would have went in ye old days like that across, and it was like a Y. And there's the old feed house over here, or feed mill that became a house. So in 1959, January of 59, the O&W is out of business for almost 2 years, and Mr. Leroy Bajon and his buddies show up in their Plymouth, and they rode from Cornwall to Middletown in this thing. I was told that this gentleman was a reporter for one of the Middletown papers before they all merged, and he wanted to go on this trip. He had heard about it until they got to Orr's Mills, and he didn't want to go over the Petrussi. He says, I'll meet you guys later on. So another funny thing about this place, in 1953, the postmistress, this young lady here, she wrote to the O&W, you know, can we get electricity here? We'll pay for it. And there she is inspecting the rig. And there they are underneath 207.
Was that a regular railroad vehicle?
No, it was his car.
But what was in front of it?
They put a flat car, small car, so they could keep it aligned with the.
That would have been to keep the Plymouth on the track.
Yeah,
On
yeah,
the tracks.
exactly. So these are from the Eric Piacelli collection. These photos, they were from Fred Lewis. So we're looking down. So the station was the post office till like 64, 65. And again, there's the house that was a feed mill. These are the early 60s. So here's another stubbing post, and there's the bridge that we saw in the background.
So that's still there.
And that one's still there. There it is. This is number 34. And there's our buddy from those that came to the first show from Cornwall.
The mysterious man.
This is like an optical illusion because this is the higher side, even though it's lower now. You can see all it was a wood deck bridge. I've taken people back there, and this one guy says, oh, that collapsed. I said, yeah, with an excavator. There's no way that fell by itself. Still some ties.
Don't tell my mother, but when I was 13, a bunch of us walked across that bridge. In between the boards that weren't there.
So here we are, we're over in here now. Burnside, Rock Tavern. So you could see how Maybrook was in a short time. Maybrook was nothing at one time. Here, look at how much of a rail yard it is now. So here we are at Board and Switch. And this is the main line going to Middletown and Oswego. And this was a Board and Switch along 208. And this building was with this foundation. I don't know if it was part of the railroad or not, but I drove up there and took a picture anyway. So this is 208, and when I was employed by the DOT, we were paving one time, and I kept looking at it. I said, boy, I wonder if that was how the road used to go. I found out like 25, 30 years later, nope, that was, railroad tracks were there. So they could lead to this, Borden's Creamery. And this is still standing, obviously. There was an electrician was in there for a while. I don't know who's in there now. The ice house. This was taken from what we know as 207. Now this is all gone too. I took that a few years ago. Now this is all leveled out too. Dropping off milk at the new Creamery. This is so as trucks got more, you know, the roads got better, the trucks got better, you know, the railroad wasn't needed. So this was swinging Burnside way back when. And this is another section that's 207 that was rerouted, which we won't talk about now, but if you look at a map, you can see how 207 used to go. An old map.
That Burnside, you don't even know you're going through it, there's
Right.
nothing there.
Right.
I think one pizza thing in the store and that's it.
Yep. So here we are in the late 1890s, early 1900s, getting double track in 208. Here it is, all finished. Not sure of the exact date. These are again from Eric Piacelli in the Fred Lewis collection. And another thing I always wondered in DOT days: why are these two pull-offs on the side of the road here? Well, that's why. So these are Eric's shots and from Fred's collection. This is a '66 Pontiac, and I posted on a few local pages. Nobody really knows when this was taken down. Looking north.
You think somebody in Maybrook would know?
Right, right.
Yep.
So looking across 208. Oops. This is Burnside. The Lehigh and Hudson River Railroad intersected here. Burnside. This ad or this photo, this guy was in Maybrook, a local advertisement, and he was a taxi driver. That was his thing. He would take people, he said Burnside, Campbell Hall, and Rock Tavern stations. From Maybrook he would go.
With the horse and buggy?
Yeah. 1909. Again, these looks just like the one that just burned down recently. The former Rusty Nail Mechanicstown station. There were 6 of them like this. And again, the Firthcliffe one, the first one was the most elaborate. I usually don't put this photo in because this lady, this isn't the station. The house was built as an exact replica of the station, and unfortunately some of my fellow railroad fans are morons and they trespass on the lady's property, and
Took the picture.
well, I took that from the road, but I don't go walking around her house.
Yeah.
So the station would have been around here, and this is the controlling tower, and that would have been back over in here, and this is the south leg of the Y. A Y is how they would turn trains around when they didn't have a turntable. So Farmer Rowe now uses this as an access road to get to his fields.
Is that trolley road?
Doug Barbario collection. This is a great shot. So he's getting ready to turn around. He just passed the Y, so if he wanted to turn around, it's a complicated maneuver. So even though the O&W was here first, these guys, the Lehigh, and they had the right of way because they're going up grade, and even that small little bit of grade would slow them down, so the O&W would have to stop and let them go if they were there first. So that was the diamond that used to be there where they crossed ties in the former Y. So the station, I'm lost here. So Agent Capek, the people would live in these, the station agent and his family, they could live in these. They didn't have heat, they didn't have running water, unless they put them in. But they got all the coal they wanted. he began his job in 1919, and he was the last agent in 39. Oh, yeah. So there's the station, and there's the house that's built to look like the station.
Who originally built the house?
The people that lived in the area, the relatives of the Rose, the farmers.
Okay,
I think they call it the Cornell House.
yeah, I think that's what it said, yeah.
So this is Lehigh and Hudson. Threw that in. If you're going out 207, you can see that. And this is the bridge. 406 between Burnside and Otters,
Where's Otters?
behind the Otter Kill Golf Course.
Okay.
Yeah, what's that road that runs there?
Otter Kill Road.
Otterkill, yeah.
So this lady is not railroad friendly at all. So I wanted to get a picture of this, which was back here, and she wouldn't let me go down. So we kindly asked the people at the golf course if we could go on the golf course, and they said, sure, go ahead. So we got the picture.
She wouldn't let you walk down there. You wouldn't
No.
walk.
I don't know.
Crazy. Like you're gonna do something, right?
So that's the way it would have went over here. And now we're gonna, and if the golf course owns this too, they'll let you walk back there quite a ways if you ask nicely. So this is along just before County 4, and this is an oddity because usually, we didn't see them in this part of the presentation. The west side of all culverts is this beautiful stonework. The east side is usually just poured concrete when they double track, but this is this beautiful stonework on both sides, and two different kinds of bricks on the inside. There's gray brick and red brick. This is County Route 4. Now this, I did get a lot of responses from the Maybrook page because I asked when this was taken out, and they weren't the responses I was expecting. Remember when Uncle Guido got killed there and Cousin Frankie got hit head on, and I was like, ooh. So anyway, this guy is over here. So this road was really crazy for this going underneath this bridge here. And again, this probably was taken out in the early 60s. I wanted to get rid of this one pretty quickly, I think. Another cattle crossing. Campbell Hall. Prior to Maybrook, Campbell Hall was the place to see trains, if you were a train spotter, as they say in Europe. .601 coming into 1946. NYO&W is one of the first railroads to go diesel. Campbell Hall ticket.
I think they still use that track, right?
Yeah.
Campbell?
Yep. This one. I'm not sure when they took down this station, but it was in pretty rough shape whenever they did. Southbound. This is Meddletown Road. This is so hard to believe. Right here, I'm standing at a different angle. Should have been over here a little bit more. That train would be crossing the road here. So the station is behind this guy's house, and the tower would have been somewhere over in here. It's hard to believe. Another view of the station. Pretty rough shape in 48. Not too much longer for the O&W. Northbound. So here's the tower. The tower would have been over in here. This is, I believe this is Erie Avenue. Crossing the Diamond. So there are other railroads came through too. It was the Erie, the Lehigh and New England, the New York Central, Lehigh and Hudson. This is a busy place at one time. So this is how they still use this to get into Maybrook over here. And that's Maybrook in 1948. And this shows how massive the yard was in Maybrook, all those locomotives, the different power units and the different railroads. So this was the hotel, and I was told it was also a house of ill repute in railroad days. I don't have my now picture, but this is Meddletown Road. If you stood there now, you're standing on a road. It's not double tracked anymore. This is still standing. This is the deli. This is the deli, I'm sorry, over here. And the caboose would be over here, and the junkyard over here. Alright, so this is the mountain here. This was their last gasp at steam power. They did like the Midas touch on it. They just put all kinds of sheet metal and gave it a fancy paint job, and it was a nice looking locomotive. But so this is easy. This is a hiking trail right here off of 207. It's not very long. This is the opposite side. Beavers have turned this into a swamp. So when the trees are down, you can see this quite easily. Just before you get to 416. And Clark's Creamery. So I'm standing in the town of Hamptonburg parking lot they're building, and that's where this picture was taken from. This is what we know as 416. Obviously the roads have been rerouted. 207, here's the underpass to get to Goshen. O&W Bridge 41 and a half, there it is. This was built in 1909 by the Erie Railroad, around 1909. Trains approaching Clark's. So here's the Creamery, and if you went back here now, if you drive there now, this is all grown in. You know, people think back then the land was cleared for two reasons: one for farming, and two, you know, to build houses and burn the wood. Another view of the Creamery. This is 207 in the background. So the grade crossing would have been here with 416. A whistle post. And this is all that's left of the Creamery. Not much. So this is still known as O&W Bridge to this day. Metro North Railroad, they still call it O&W Bridge. So this was here first. So this is bridge number 41, and this is 41 and a half, the one on top. Again, the Erie built this. And you can walk back right about here. There's that's where they put the fence up, so you can't walk back anymore for the trail. But that's another place you should definitely go in the cooler months, because it's a swamp now and there's a lot of nasty bugs. This is 207 going to Campbell Hall in Newburgh. And it's 416 going out to Montgomery. And he's about to go into Campbell Hall. And it's still O&W Bridge, as I said. There's the Erie going over it. So this is the double track in this bridge over the Walk Hill. So the Erie would be over here. He is the photographer staying on this bridge here, so he's right about here. So this area floods a lot. So I'm not sure if this was built as like a relief for flooding, or if it's just a cattle crossing, but this gets really flooded over in this area. Double tracking the Walk Hill Bridge. Stony Ford. Coming into Stony Ford. This is gone now. This end of the abutment, unfortunately. This one. Gentleman owns a horse farm and he cleared everything out. Coming into Stony Ford. And this is on the opposite side of the bridge. Maybe 20 feet past the Walkill River. Walk Hill, not the river, Walk Hill. Alright, so here we are in Stony Ford. This is Stony Ford Road. This is another area that's all been rerouted, this road here. Again, waiting for the train at Stony Ford. That's what it looks like, and well, it still looks like that now, 20 years later. So this is where the Creamery was. They also had a cattle pen back here in the station again, which looks exactly like the ones in Meadowbrook and Burnside and Mechanicstown and Crystal Run and First Cliff. So this was Stony Ford Road. Again, this has really been rerouted. We'll take a look. I always wondered what this was when I was a kid. You know, when I first got my license, we'd ride around aimlessly. What the heck is that? Well, that's what it was. It was this abutment that was here. When they rerouted the road, they leveled it out, and they left that. So this is the same view from O'Hare Road, I think it is there. So this abutment stood forever in the woods, and then one day they knocked it down, and they were building a house. I asked the guy, you know, why? And he goes, oh, I just wanted to see what my machine could do. And that one burned down too. I'm not sure of the date. They all burned down.
Was it arson?
Don't know. Don't know for that one. So here we are. This is a really nice, calming picture. Bridge 45. It's in the Stony Ford area. So in a few short years, this is Stony Ford Road, and just like Jackson Avenue in the Windsor, the O&W ran really close to it. You can see how it was elevated here. Now it isn't. They leveled everything out. Don't know why, but this is Stage Road right here. And this bridge is gone since like 2008, I believe. I think that's what I have written down. Another thing I always wondered about when I was a kid riding around, what that bridge was for. So here's the various stages of it. So this gentleman that took this picture was Ray Brown. He worked for the Middletown and New Jersey Railroad. He used to take pictures all the time. This was during a fan trip. I'm not sure if Mal Howe took this picture or Pete Putnam. I took this picture, and then that's what's there now. Supposedly this bridge was taken down after all these years because they built a horse farm back here, and they weren't afraid. They knew the fire trucks wouldn't be able to fit underneath the bridge. So that's supposedly why they took it down.
There they go, yeah.
Some ties still left. Another cattle crossing. This is Scotchtown Avenue. So right about where my scooter is where the bridge was, right around here. Crystal Run Road. I showed the guy that lived. He was very grateful I gave him this picture. This is near where Tet's was. It's not Tet's anymore. Crystal Run. And these roads were rerouted too. Mr. Tet's Chip, I believe his name is. He came to one of my shows years ago and he explained how Karate Road was the main road, and what we now call Presto Run Road wasn't even there for quite some time. Here's the Creamery. This is Agent Phillips. So this road wasn't the original road. Karate Road was back here. This was built, I forget what Mr. Tetz said. So you can see over in here where the curve is, that's where the tracks are, right here. Just a little bit of elevation. And this is the backside. This is Karate Road. This was the original route. The same trees, 100 years later. So, at the end of this is the right of way. At the end of this is 84. The town of Walkill, I don't know what they're doing. I've seen the DPW guys going in there. I don't know what they're doing in there. But from 84, before they built 84, there was probably still a lot of the right of ways left. And then they built 84, the Galleria. But when they built 17, they went over the O&W. They really didn't mess with it too much. So this is a hard to believe one. This ramp is if you're coming from, we'll say Binghamton, and you want to go to Port Jervis on 84. That's the O&W. So when you get past the Galleria and not the 17 west exit, the 17 east, and you come looping around, that's where this is. That's where the O&W went. Mechanicstown. So when the O&W went out of business, the station was saved, and it was moved about 75 feet to 100 feet off of the right-of-way and spun around counterclockwise 45 degrees. So when it was the restaurant, remember when you came in the parking lot, that was the front. Well, that was it here. So they spun it that way. And it was a private residence for quite some time too. I don't remember that. I shouldn't say that. I barely remember that. I do remember it as the restaurant. And it seems odd that, you know, a place that didn't have electricity for like, I don't know, 15 years mysteriously caught on fire. Dunning Road. Way back when. This is unbelievable. This is Dunning Road. And if you see this gray back here? It's kind of hard to see how everything's green, but there's that gray.
See something there, yeah.
That's 17. That's the bridge that went over the O&W for 17. So this is Shut Road Extension. A lot of Shut Road Extension was built on the right of way. So Price Chopper's over in here and all that stuff.
School down there too,
Yeah,
right?
over here.
Yeah.
So this bridge was probably built right here over this, the road bridge. And these stones for the riprap are definitely the abutment stones. So for years I thought that this was the right of way. No, it was in here. And again, for those that saw my trolley presentation, these were the trolley buildings over here, the car barn, the powerhouse, and the car barns. There it is. So the entire time the O&W, or the trolley was in business, the O&W provided them with coal. So this is their coal dump. And obviously they went underneath. And that was the bridge that they went underneath Main Street. When I was looking this up, I found an old article from like, newspaper article from like 62 or 3. It wasn't the DOT then, it was still the DPW. And they didn't put an exit sign from East Main Street because the traffic, this was still a one-lane bridge like the one we saw in Rock Tavern, one lane to get in and out of Middletown, and the traffic would be backed up for miles. So they finally tore this down. Early '60s sometime. Genung Street. So one of the only ones that I've seen falling apart. North of Buttman at Phillip Street. This is a great picture. I use this one in the trolley presentation too. This is the Erie, the O&W in the Middletown in New Jersey. Here's the trolley going around to get back out. A lot of these buildings still stand. Coming into town at Railroad Avenue. Main Street Station, still in operation.
It's still there, right?
Yep. City of Middletown just took it over. I don't know what they're going to do with it. 1950 crossing Main Street. Let's see how things dried up over the time. Middletown was a big railroad city at one time. Real big. And one of the guys in the society, Carl Olson, he's very artistic, and he drew this. So I remember this place. I might have quaffed a cocktail or two in there when it was Turf's Tavern. Velocipede. Working on this street in front of AV Station. And there it is. This is how I remember it. Cafe Fiesta or the O&W station. Better days. Not really better days, because the O&W, they went bankrupt in 1937 and they floundered around until they finally went out for 20 years. Here's the freight house. That's long gone. The end is near. I keep putting that whenever you see 1957, especially March. I could call this the good, the bad, and the ugly. This is when it was good. This is when it was bad. And this is shortly after the fire when it was really ugly. So this was Seaholz's restaurant. The O&W was one of the few railroads that didn't have dining cars. So you had, I don't know if it's 10 or 15 minutes, get out of the train, get into Seaholz's, get your grub steak, and head back onto the train, or you're going to be stuck in Middletown. This place was supposedly cleanest, best food you could imagine.
Really?
Yeah. And about 3 days after I joined the O&W Society in February 2004, the station burned down. But I did manage to get in there. I have a few friends in Middletown that have some pull. Got to walk around and look. Supposedly the city of Middletown owns this building now, and they're going to rehab it. They were given a bunch of money. Don't know if that's true. I've been hearing it for 20 plus years. So
No, so they haven't done the grant probably didn't come through.
some more shots. Somebody stole the clock. This is the freight house, the Adams Freight House. They were like FedEx or UPS. They weren't really connected with the railroad, but they were. Not looking too good now. And this is their yard, their coal yard, or their main yard up by Wisner Avenue. The roundhouse. These are Dodge coaling machines, so they can get them perfect piles. Coal tower. This place was massive. At one time, the O&W was the biggest employer in Middletown. I think they had 2,500 employees at one time. And these two books were the inspiration, and that's the end of our journey for tonight. Thank you.